All right.
Yeah, here we are.
Here we are.
I'm here with John. This is Fish speaking. I'm here with John. And John works at New Vine Records.
That's right.
New Vine is a not-for-profit record label here in the Ithaca area. Mm-hmm. And they're doing some fine work.
Thanks. We've been around for about 10 years, if you can believe it. It has its roots in a local studio called Masterview Studios. The founder was Peter Hopper. He was a Columbia Records guy back in the 70s and the 80s. Those guys were wearing white lab coats at that point, and he did some cool things, recorded some cool people, and then decided to move out here into the woods and build this really cool, unique little space. So ever since then, we've decided we want to just do something for the arts, and we have a studio, but we're more of a collective or record label, and we raise money to do projects with artists.
Wow.
So it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
So the question that we were talking about before we started this first episode here, by the way, this is our first episode,
everybody.
Yeah. So
we're giving it a shot.
We're going for it.
Yeah.
And the question we were asking here is, like, why do you make music? Mm-hmm. Why do you do it? You always hear, what is your why? Mm-hmm. That's because that's your driving force, right? And there's many different reasons. So I want to hear from you, John. Why do you make music? Why do you engineer albums, mm-hmm. and et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I get a little anecdotal, so I'll try to tone it down. But one of my favorite people in the world was Walt Disney. And growing up, I found myself inspired by people like him who were super creators. What's interesting about Walt is he started with two-dimensional drawings, on paper. And he fell in love with that art form and eventually created movies, as we all know. And it was a pretty hardcore journey the guy was on. But what really captured what inspired me about him is after the first 3 or 4 or 5 big movies, the studio there's a thing that there was a shakeup, and he got distanced a little, and he took this big long vacation and went on a train ride. And on that train ride, he was inspired by the experience of it. And it became something that was almost like an obsession to the guy. And yes, this does have something to do with why I do music, by the way. But he ended up coming back and being inspired to create Disney World. And the reason he wanted to do that was because he wanted to take a two-dimensional experience through movie making and make it a three-dimensional reality experience. For me, I grew up drawing and painting, and I feel like music, even though a lot of people don't understand it, it's the most powerful part of anything in movies, or, it's the soundtrack that kind of motivates and inspires emotion. I feel like it's a superior art form in a lot of ways, and it kind of takes you out of the two-dimensional into the theater of the mind, which is even beyond the third dimension in a sense. And so I love investing in that art form specifically because of that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've never been moved by anything more than music.
Well said. Wow, that's a really cool story.
Yeah.
Walt Disney. I mean, if you've been to Disney World at some point,
it's a big deal. I mean, they're in the news right now. It's a big deal. They, the tax thing and everything.
Sure. Well, it's funny you mentioned the music. You said it was a superior art form in some ways, which may be controversial. Some people might take
okay with a little
with
controversy.
Yeah, that's okay. Because I think a good example of that is scary movies. Mm-hmm. If you watch a scary movie with no sound,
that's right,
it's not scary anymore.
Right.
So that's a really good test for showing the power that music has. In terms of if it's like superior art form, like that's probably debatable. Mm-hmm. But it's your why. So
it's my why.
If you find it to be, a cut above in terms of the art forms, and that drives you, then I think that's great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I feel like, everybody has their perspective on things, and I don't want to downplay at all what other people might be moved by, but it kind of stands the test of other situations as well. For example, like Star Wars. They made that film, And when they were editing the film, it was a nightmare. His colleagues were, I'm sure a lot of people know this story, but his colleagues were like, what are you trying to do here? They did a screening in Spielberg, and everybody was like, this isn't so great, And they got toward the third or fourth edit, and they were struggling with it. And then John Williams' soundtrack came into the picture, and it just blew wide open the doors on the experience of Star Wars, which is really interesting too, because at the time they were making films that weren't necessarily orchestrally supported as in soundtracks. There was a lot of electronic music and bass guitar and drums, and it just like that was also a weird thing that they chose to do, is make orchestral music the foundation of a sci-fi film, and it just totally changed the edit process, and it inspired the movie and brought it where it was. So I feel like it's an extra dimension, and even possibly it's the root of the emotion of things. When you see something and then sound is applied to it, it makes a huge difference.
One of the greatest themes of all time is the theme from Rudy.
Rudy?
Yeah, remember that movie?
Oh God,
the football movie.
I'm not a sports guy, Sam.
Okay.
I gotta be honest. Like, you're one of those guys.
Yeah, it's all good. But Rudy, the main, check out the main theme from Rudy.
Yeah.
Oh man, like it'll bring tears to your eyes. It's just so impactful, especially like where it happens in the movie too. It's just like, oh my God.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. It's
I love film too. Film is big, but sound is a big part of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's continue on here.
Sure. Well, wait a minute. What about you?
Well, we can talk about me a little bit. What do you want to know?
Okay. Well, I gotta say, I'm a super fan of Fish here. I met him about, I don't know, was it 6 months ago, 8 months ago?
Yeah.
He came into town.
It might be 8 months around then.
Yeah.
Like, cause it was warm.
Oh, it was. God.
When we met.
Was it like a year ago already?
It might be close to that.
Jeez, man. So anyway, I met this guy. He comes into the studio, and he's with a group that we were doing a live recording with, and super unpretentious, like really cool dude, super chill. And the more I got to know what this guy does with a drum kit, the more I realized like this guy is super serious and passionate about what he does. And so what inspired you to get on the drums? And I think there's more to there's more to you than drums, but I'm curious. Like,
it's just drums. That's all I do.
You're all the drums.
It's all drums. Okay. No, no, it's great. Thanks for asking that.
Yeah.
I always I usually, when people ask me about like why did you pick drums or when did you start playing drums, I usually go back to the story of when I was 3 years old, around that time, and I would take the wooden spoons in the kitchen, and I'd start hitting all of the kitchenware and the pots and pans with it.
Right.
And my babysitter at the time would like hide the wooden spoons so that I couldn't make all this racket.
Oh my gosh.
So I would do that.
By the way, kudos to all those parents out there that endure the early drummer years.
Oh man. Yeah. It can be a racket.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate that my parents were okay with the noise in the basement.
Yeah.
But so back to the story, I would hit these pots and pans, and I was actually studying piano at the time because my dad was a piano player and very accomplished. Mm-hmm. He's actually just came out with a concept album called Dead End the Musical.
No kidding.
Just
your dad.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
He composed the music. His creative and business partner Harvey wrote the lyrics, and together they're this just dynamic creative team.
Wow.
It's based on a book by it's Sir Ben Kingsley, I think it is, or Sidney Kingsley.
Oh, okay.
That's who it is.
Totally different guy.
Yeah, totally different guy. And it's worth checking out. It's really cool.
Okay.
And anyways, so he's been a composer and wanted me to study piano. Mm-hmm. And as I was playing piano, and after like a month, I just quit. There's like no practice time to myself. Every time I'd practice, my dad would be listening, and it didn't work out. So I clearly had some rhythm, and I begged my parents for 2 years to play the drums. To me, it was just this innate thing.
Yeah.
It was just in me, like rhythm. And I'm just like, I have to express it somehow. So drums seemed like a logical way to do that. And that was it. That's really why I started playing. It was really just for me because I liked to play rhythms.
It's inside of you.
I wasn't trying to impress anybody. I wasn't trying, like, you know, it was just like, I feel that this is my destiny, which is really kind of crazy.
Yeah.
If you think about that.
Well, if you ever saw him play, I would concur. It's a real experience. There's a set of releases that you're doing right now with Who Is Fish that specifically this one cut that you did called Mantra.
Yeah, Mantra. Oh my goodness.
And the energy is it's ethereal to me. I love the visual nature of music as well. So when you record things live and you actually capture what that performance looks like, I thought that video did a good job doing that for you. And it's super. I don't mean supernatural, but it's very natural for you to express on that instrument. So anyway,
that was epic, and you recorded that. You were
did.
there recording it, and we had Jeff Hodges doing video.
Jeff's awesome.
Excellent. The whole. It was a great team. We had Michael Wu on bass and Diwas Skarung on guitar. Just like. That was a great, and that song was I co-wrote that like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I was afraid of a black hole forming from all the talent in the room. It was a little scary at the time.
That was fun, man. That was a good time.
So anyway,
that kind of
cool.
I think that it answers the why. It was really just for me really. I just wanted to play, and then you get positive reinforcement as you move on and get better and better, and there you go. So.
That's key.
Yeah.
That positive reinforcement part. I think testing the waters and having some success in that, right?
Yeah.
So
let's continue on,
let's
John.
Cool.
So we answered this like why for each of us, and let's talk about the show itself, why we started it, and we're going to get a lot more whys
sure
in this show.
Wiser,
yeah. From other musicians too. Like that's what one of the reasons we wanted to start the show is that we wanted to have New Vine artists come in, and we could, we want to get like a little like round table going.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two artists at a time, or maybe one at a time. We're still working through that, but we wanted to get the perspective from the New Vine artists, and then eventually also just other local artists to, get to the root of this scene here in Ithaca, right?
Yeah.
A scene that I'm still getting acclimated to, and you've been acclimated with for a while.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that? I feel like Ithaca is a microcosm of many other cities around the country that are forming scenes, and with the way the industry is and or isn't anymore, we're at the precipice of new beginnings, new stories of new collectives, of new music, and so it's the why for New Vine is because I feel a sense of injustice about the fact that new artists are overlooked or have no mechanism to connect with audiences that they deserve to have, stages that they deserve to play on, and also, delivery platforms for their fans or their potential fans to really connect. And there's just this weird blockade, whether it's a technological one or it's a physical venue one. Regardless, it's just difficult, and we all know it's difficult. But I feel like New Vine exists to help artists find a way through that gauntlet. And I use the word injustice. I wouldn't say angers me. It does.
So angry.
So
angry.
I'm never going to stop doing this because I feel like it's almost like a mission to prove that the regional or local artist has incredible value to add to the musical dialogue of our world. So, yeah.
Well, that's a great segue because another part of this show is going to be talking about value, values as it pertains to musicians and local artists, right? Like we've decided as a society in this modern, brave new world that we live in that your value is based on how many followers you have on Instagram or... and that's what's been happening for a couple of years now is that A&R people instead of going to shows, they're just going on YouTube.
Right,
And they're
right.
saying, well, this person has 100,000 followers, so I'm going to book them over the guy that has, you know,
Right.
5,000 followers. It's kind of a no-brainer for the A&R people and for the booking agents, unfortunately. And I learned this firsthand being in a specific band that I was in before I got to Ithaca. I learned that those two things do not always add up. So
Right.
you could have 50,000 likes
Oh, yeah.
on Facebook, and you go play a show, and 10 people show up to your show.
right.
So it doesn't quite work out that way, and I think making sense of that is like it's really tricky.
Well, yeah, the social media, the open square, the garden, the impenetrable, algorithm has really kind of emasculated the independent artist in a sense. Even though a lot of people say, this is the greatest time ever to be an artist. I actually feel like it's kind of distance opportunity from a lot of people because it's a computer kind of deciding who's going to see what's going on. And those A&R guys, that's another whole discussion and how labels work and everything.
Yeah, that'd probably be a separate episode for sure.
And we should. I think that'd be a super amazing episode to discuss that issue. But artists are kind of trapped in the algorithm. And they have no means. And even, when it comes beyond that, we'll do our own shows. Like, it's super hard to get people to come to shows because there's no way to communicate directly to their fan base or the people that like their music or could like their music.
Well, I believe there is, though. I mean, email is a very direct way to reach people if you're getting an email list going,
Right.
and then you can just get in their inbox.
Right,
There is a way to use, obviously, there have been artists that have been very successful using some of these platforms, right? There is a way to do it. It's going to be different for everybody.
Sure.
I think what I'm extracting there is like, it's just oversaturated. That's always been the case, right?
So it's weird because there's so many ways to get your stuff out, but because it's so easy, so cheap,
Yeah.
and so available, there's just this huge ocean of artistry out there. And the Spotify CEO, you hear him talk about the numbers that come and pour in every day, and you're like, how the heck can our music ever make a connection?
Yeah.
Let's get back to the value thing.
Sure.
I think that it's hard work to find good music today. Because it's so available and anybody can do it, quote unquote. People have to take, extra time to find it. But to be honest with you, consumers don't do that. So that leaves it up to us to get that into their hands somehow.
You have to think about why. Well, what was I saying there? Why it's. Oh, that's my train of thought.
No, that's okay.
We're talking about Spotify. We're talking about just the scarcity thing.
Yeah, well, let's see. Like, for example, Spotify numbers, submissions a day.
Oh, like how many
Yeah.
different songs get uploaded in a day? It's like 40,000 a day, right?
60,000 songs every day
Oh, it's up.
Sure, yeah.
60,000, yeah.
end up on Spotify.
It just makes you like that's why you really have to do it for you, right? You've
Right.
got to do music for yourself. Like it's kind of a crapshoot out there.
Yeah.
And you've seen people chasing stuff
so
too.
I might like digress from your thought on. I just don't believe that social media, these platforms, they're so saturated. I don't think that's the way to the heart of your fan anymore. I think you have to bring them to your digital outlet.
Yeah. And it's a community. You got to create a community.
Right. There you go.
I love this like Rage Against the Machine is just a really good example. Like they, were like anarchy and like, don't trust the government and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And like they built and their music's badass.
Yeah.
So, and they just built this community around that. It's like Fish. I went to a Fish concert
Right.
last weekend at Madison Square Garden. it's a community. Like there are people that they go to these shows not necessarily because they know all the Fish songs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a friend was like, "Oh, you've never been to a Fish show? You gotta come. You gotta go."
Right.
'Cause it's a party.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's a party. You go in, everybody is just having a blast.
One of the most creative live experiences I've ever seen.
It's
I mean,
sick.
they put a lot of thought and theatrical energy into what they're doing. And it's not just them. It's everybody together kind of enjoying the experience together. And they're
Yeah.
intentional about that, which
Yeah.
is... So, yeah, they've figured out how to do that.
So what are you doing at your live shows? That's the thing I pose to artists. It's
There you
like,
go.
what are you doing at your live shows to create that community and that experience? Are you just getting up and playing your songs? Because
Right.
that's what everybody's doing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what is that X factor? Do you have above average songwriting? Because that matters. How good
We're
are
talking
you?
about value points here, right?
Yeah, these
Okay.
are yes.
Yeah.
These are value points, right? How good are you at your instrument? Are you able to demonstrate a mastery of your instrument? Because if
Right.
you're not demonstrating that, people are just going to kind of be like, well, you're just like the other 20 bands that I've seen.
Right.
So are you wearing some cool outfits? Like you are, it's like a whole thing. Right.
I think that there are so many people trying to do this. It's a frustration point for people who actually are. One thing I'm impressed about you is you've worked really hard and disciplined your craft. I grew up in high school and played with musicians that were doing lessons, could sight read, that were serious about music, you know? And I almost went to music school. I wanted to go to Juilliard, and you know, that was a goal of mine. I couldn't really focus enough to get to that place. But like that was so attractive to me because these people really can just breathe it. They could breathe music. And I feel like when I see a band or a group of people get on a stage and they're fumbling around on their instruments, the guitars are out of tune.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you there? Like, what are you doing on the stage? Are you there because you want attention? Are you there because, you know, or
Right.
is this an expression of something that's genuine and a real passion? And you could, you know, it's more about what you know, I've heard somebody say, if someone laughs at their own jokes, they're probably a good comedian.
That's good. Yeah. You should be able to amuse yourself.
Right.
And maybe that's it, you know, like, but intention is so important
Yeah.
about why you're getting up on that stage. If you can laugh at, I like that. If you can enjoy, you got to enjoy yourself.
You got to enjoy your own music. I feel like if I don't enjoy what I'm doing, I have a hard time working with people.
Yeah.
It's got to be a genuine, I really like what I'm doing with people.
Well, that leads into our next topic here, which is like, what is one thing that you find makes somebody stand out as a professional versus an amateur? And I'll just remove the obvious one, which is like getting paid to do it.
Sure.
That makes you a professional.
Yeah.
But besides that, you know, what is one thing you would say
One thing,
that you look for in a professional musician?
you could do a top three.
We could do top three.
Okay,
Yeah.
top three.
Why not?
I think top three people that I love to work with that I would consider that I could see as a professional is the relational aspect. I would put it kind of the top. Your ability to be a good hang. I think we talked about this.
Yeah.
I think, you know, obviously you need to be a good musician, but you could be the greatest musician in the world. And if you're an asshole, nobody wants to deal with you.
What is an asshole?
Jacques Pastore is known for being this incredible bass player, and he was a total hard guy to work with, and people really had a hard time working with the dude. And so I feel like that's top for me. If I can work with people who are respectful, respect your time, respect their own time, and actually practice before they show up, and have things kind of set in a vision for what they want, that is professional to me. I'd say the second most important thing for me is I think is vision, and having a clear, articulate. You know, there's a clarity to what they're doing. It's not a guessing game. They're not there just to to do anything other than really, like, a studio kind of spells this out. When people show up unprepared in a studio setting, it's annoying.
Yes.
It's very difficult. It's like, I'm not here to figure out your art form.
Yeah.
I'm here to assist you as a producer. I can't actually find inspiration from an artist that doesn't have inspiration themselves. So I think probably vision and inspiration would be the second.
I heard a story from an engineering friend of mine back in New Jersey. No, I'm sorry. Actually, this was up in Rochester, New York.
Yeah.
Up in Rochester. And I lived with this engineer for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And he was telling me a story. He had a band come in to record, and the band wanted to record an album. And after the first song, he said, and this was ballsy, but he said, guys, I got to tell you, like, I'm happy to record you, but you're not ready.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, he said you're not ready to record this record.
Well, people think a studio is a fun place to hang. It's actually the most painful experience in the world for people. It's
I mean, it depends who you're asking, I guess, right? I enjoy the studio setting.
it can be painful, I guess, probably if they're not prepared.
Yeah.
It's a microscope. It draws to the surface the things you don't want to hear. In fact, if people can't get around that, they have a real hard time being genuine in a studio setting. They do much better in a live setting because of the clarity of the obvious errors that are apparent. You know, it's just really clear. So yeah, I would say the third thing is just a gracious attitude about, or flexible attitude, an openness to learn something new. When people come in as a know-it-all, I feel like it's really a turnoff for me.
Yeah. I've worked with those people.
yeah. But then I've met, okay, so we're going to talk about who's pro.
Yeah.
Mostly people who are professionals don't talk about how good they are. I've found. And they're often learning all the time.
Sure.
Michael Jackson was known for this. Like, he came into the studio working with Quincy Jones, and it was noteworthy that he was constantly asking questions about how to do things right and learning. And so he was just growing his ability because he had a flexible and a non-pretentious and a humble kind of attitude about things. And this is Michael Jackson.
Right.
You know, I think people get this idea just because they're confident on a stage that they have to have this arrogant kind of, you know, attitude about who they are and overconfidence. But I find that the people who are really good are just not that way. Yeah.
Yeah. If you know you're good, you don't need to tell
Right.
people that. Like that's something. This is back to basketball, which is like totally unrelated, but that's something that LeBron James, as good as he's an incredible basketball player.
Yeah.
But he has a few times said, like, he feels disrespected because he doesn't get the credit he deserves. And it's like, dude, if you're so good, you don't even need to say that
No,
stuff.
you don't. I don't think Michael Jordan had a problem walking around looking for attention.
It just, and it was a different era, but that's another discussion. But I just want to, it kind of relates. It's like,
Well, I'm already getting anxious because it's a sports discussion. One more thing. I feel like artists who don't have a reasonable expectation for their investment tend to create a tension that they kind of impose on other people sometimes. And I feel like having a reasonable expectation for what you're investing in, you might be surprised that you connect with something and it really takes off. That's the kind of person that I think has a better mental health situation in their art. But people I've had people say, you're ruining my career because things are this way.
Like in the studio, just like, why don't I sound like $1 million? Why don't I sound amazing?
Right.
Maybe
like,
because you didn't sing it well. Like, I don't know.
Stuff like that. No, stuff like that. It's like, or just like if things are not hitting this ridiculous time frame that they feel they have to have at times. I feel they just need to be reasonable. I feel like people who are like that are super chill, and I find that their stuff works out way better. You know, they're not a rock star in their own mind.
Right. The rock stars are dead anyways. So another thing I want to add to that.
Sure.
because you've made some very good points about what it means to be a professional. Another thing I'd like to add is being on time, which is like the most basic and easy thing to say.
It's respectful.
But for some reason, it's difficult to do for a lot of musicians I've seen. And it depends what your setting is, of course. Like, if you're in a band and you've just been in this band for years and years and like you're just, that's different.
I feel like I need to change my order now.
Well,
But
we'll get to that. But
I feel like you're right. I think what you're talking about is work ethic.
Just like
Work ethic.
Like if you're called in to do a job, or see, and this ties into the like, what do you want to be in the music world, right?
Yeah.
So like, I know for me, I've always wanted to be the guy that lifts up the project, or that lifts up the music, that adds that specialness to it, that helps someone see a vision, makes it the best it can be. And I've wanted to be the guy that's dependable, reliable, all of that. I've always wanted to be that. And so I'm showing up on time for things. That's important. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in situations where the other musicians or one or two other musicians are showing up 20 minutes, a half hour late.
Right.
And it's like I almost want to leave the session at that point.
Oh no, I definitely feel that, bro.
It's like you don't respect anyone else's time.
Right.
That's what it shows me.
Well, and it also shows an attitude of, I feel like it's not, the priorities are wrong. It's like, are you serious about what you're doing? I do understand that some people are just like, it doesn't really matter. I know people like that. They've been through it. They're kind of burnt out on the industry, whatever.
Right.
It's all whatever, And in a sense, I kind of understand that, and I think it's a little bit healthy.
And it's
actually,
expectations.
It's expectations.
Yeah, if you know that person's that way, then you know what
Right.
you're getting into. But if, again, professional, right? Like if you're hired to do something as a guy that, see, that's the thing. A lot of musicians want to do their own stuff.
Right.
And it limits your opportunities. Like, I've just known,
you are stoking my fire right now. This is a big one for me.
Yeah.
I get really irritated when people have an attitude almost of this isn't a big deal. When I show up to practice, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Every single time. I feel like every practice, every rehearsal, every opportunity to play.
And it's hard when it's hard when the monetary value isn't there. That's the thing. It's like, it's a trade-off, right? You get to do what you love, but like the money's not always, and that's another discussion, but that might lend itself towards the attitude, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe even if that person was getting paid $500 per rehearsal, maybe they'd still be late because they don't have the mindset of like taking it seriously and being a professional. So the money maybe doesn't have anything to do with it. But yeah.
Well, money, that's kind of been one of my problems though in this business is it's secondary to me.
Yeah.
I've had to learn how to become a better business person.
That's another thing. I'm sure it's been said many times, but musicians, and I had wished that I had done this back when I was in school, was like, take a business course, like just get your mind around marketing and branding, because a lot of the most successful musicians, they understand all that stuff. Like you look at Cardi B, right? I mean, she got the whole thing going, the whole team of Ariana Grande, right? The whole team is behind them, like, but they know it's like a whole package. It's not just about like, and that's why it's like, what do you want to be? What do you want to be in the music world?
Can I add to that? It's I've had artists come in and it's just basically an Instagram session. I've literally said, I need you to put your fucking cameras away.
Oh wow!
Because we're recording right now.
That's
it irritates me.
How did they respond to that?
Not well.
You're like ruffling some feathers here.
It's like,
put your fucking phone away.
Yeah, what the frick is wrong with you? It's an angry, it's this grumpy engineer guy,
Who is this guy?
But no, in all seriousness, it's like, can we focus on music?
Yeah.
Anymore?
But what if like, see, that's where the line is though. It's like, if they're paying you to use the space,
oh, sure.
I don't know. It's like, do you kind of maybe just say, all right, like, you're paying me, like, this is your time.
Well, Sam, people have said to me, you do know that studios are dinosaurs. There's no use for them anymore.
A lot of home studios now. It's
And I'll say, okay, well, I think most anything in a home studio, for the most part, not always, is basically samples and synth and those types of instrumentation. You don't have spaces that sound good. You don't have microphones often that they don't sound right. You don't have microphone pre's that a lot of the samples that you're using were recorded with in actual studios. There's value there. And anyway, we're getting off target on that. But the thing is that
I'm sure that would be challenged as well too, though, because there's a lot. It's maybe not the rule, maybe it's the exception, but there are a lot of home studios now that there's smaller spaces, but with the right treatment.
Well, no, I mean, it's amazing what you can get a hold of these days.
Yeah, it's just so accessible now.
Right, like Cappy pre's, they're basically API pre's. You can build them yourself. They're $300 a pop, and they're super nice, and things like that.
But anyways, we got off track here.
The point was for me, it did have something to do with what I was saying. The studio space, I will concede, is nowhere near as important as the passion for music.
And the ability to perform.
And the ability to perform it or to have a musical vision and want to do it. In fact, I say to people a lot, studios don't make artists. Artists make studios. There's not a studio existing in the world that doesn't have power, like Abbey Road or Muscle Shoals or any of these awesome studios that aren't there because artists came first. They came first, and then the studios appeared. They didn't build Muscle Shoals, and then artists happened.
It's not like what's that movie? Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Oh, I know a lot of guys who do that with studios, and no one comes.
Oh man.
In fact, there's a really funny video.
I built this multi-million-dollar studio. Nobody's coming.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's what's that Seattle-based comedy troupe? He's a musician himself.
Oh man,
I can't remember his name. Anyway, the video is this guy just like compiling all this really amazing analog gear that was used by Pet Sounds from
from Portlandia.
Yeah, for Portlandia. You've seen this, right?
Yeah. That's a great segment.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, he builds this
Fred
incredible
Armisen.
Fred Armisen. Yeah, he builds a space, and Jack White mystically appears at the end because he built the studio. And it's not like that, folks.
It's on Pet Sounds. They used it on Pet Sounds.
Yeah, the keys.
Yeah, and he's got the echo thing.
Yeah. It's the one.
Oh man.
Anyway,
it's fantastic. Yeah, that's a great sketch. If you haven't seen it,
it's amazing.
Portlandia, and I don't know what the name of the sketch is, but it's the music studio sketch.
Yeah, and Fred Armisen.
Fred Armisen.
He
drummer, also a drummer.
Yeah, he's got this healthy sarcasm about the music industry because he's lived through it. It's great about him.
Well, you know how he one of his big moments was when he was still kind of underground. He was playing in a band. They went to the Austin South by Southwest.
Oh, okay.
And he kind of crashed it. Like he took. This was before social media and all that. And he took a camera, and he just filmed himself being at these breakout sessions and like lectures.
Okay.
And he would just ask ridiculous questions to the lecturers, and it was all on camera, and he would like make fun of the whole music thing.
That's amazing.
And it was a bootleg video, and to his surprise, like people were saying, dude, like, do you have a copy of that video you took? Like, I want to see it. And it started circulating.
Wow.
Just word of mouth.
See, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really smart way to get connected,
and he was just
to an audience
doing it because he was enjoying himself.
He was being himself.
Time. Yeah,
I think deep down in his heart, he really wanted to be in a band that was doing something really great.
Yeah, sure. But he was. They were playing, South by Southwest.
Do you know the name of the band?
Don't know the name of the band. Damn. I'm sure we could look it up. Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of a
so
cool
we're
segueing.
Story. You said.
Yeah. Let's get. I feel like we wrap up soon.
Okay.
Being that it's the first episode.
Sure.
Kind of, this is like an intro episode.
And thanks for everybody, maybe 3 people that are listening to this podcast so far.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Maybe more.
Maybe more. We hope.
There will be, if you make it, they will come, right? So we're making a podcast. People are going to maybe look.
So that rule does apply to podcasts.
Yeah, right. With podcasts, it's okay.
Yeah.
So in wrapping up here, we have. I think we talked about. Oh, so we're gonna play this mantra song.
Yeah, I'm gonna interview you on this. So first of all, who is Fish?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
who is he?
Who is Fish?
I started this. Well, you call it a brand, sure. Yeah,
Okay.
That's what people are doing these days, it seems. So creating an image for yourself, right? And it's been going on for years and years, but now with social media, it's like a little more pinpointed as to like, this is what. Anywho, my last name's Fishman. And so I wrote Who is Fish because I wanted people to ask that question, like, who is this guy? So I figured if you're asking the question, you might be more interested to learn about it. And drumming, producing, I enjoy collaborating with people. I've put together this album called End of Time a couple years ago.
Cool.
It was born out of some like really like crazy experiences I had with a former band. And I needed to express myself and take the reins and say, because in that other band, I was being suppressed as a creative, and I was not given any time of day for my creative ideas. And so I said, this is bullshit. I have a lot of amazing stuff that I'd like to get out. So I created this album, End of Time. And after...
Good for you, man.
Yeah, thanks. And collaborated with some people at Architect Studios, which I don't think is around anymore.
Where is that located? Where was it located?
It's in Boonton, New Jersey.
Boonton.
Yeah, it was a cool spot. Shane Stanton, incredible engineer. He's always learning, always growing, and he recorded that album. Had some good people on it. Kurt Wubbenhurst.
Are some of those? Oh, really?
He played with He worked with Seven Dust on Kill the Flaw.
I know the name.
Yeah. So Kurt was there.
So did you? Some of the videos that I see you doing playthroughs on, was that at that studio?
So
early on.
Yeah, that was early on. And Mantra
Okay.
was one of the songs from End of Time. It was just this hard, adrenaline fueled, you know, and I was sitting with Kurt and I'm just like, give me a riff. Give me like a badass riff, right? And like, okay, give me another badass riff. I'm like, okay, now a new one. and he's like, dude,
Okay,
like
this is Dream Theater
he's like,
territory.
Really? Like,
Yeah.
I need a new one. And we just like went back and forth, like, and eventually
Nice.
we had like 5 or 6 just insane riffs, one after the other.
Right.
We'd always return back to the first riff as the A. So it was A, B, A, C, A, D, A, E.
Oh, cool. Nice
Yeah.
arrangement. Yep.
Like a rondo in classical. So yeah, and then I was like, we got to do that again. I got to get a live performance of that. And
Nice.
then so I called you
Yeah.
and went to the barn, which I'm staying at right now.
That's right. It's a pretty cool structure. It's awesome. In there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
Well, I gotta say, you guys packed in, 3 super talented people in that room. As you said, Jeff was doing the video, and I literally watched magic happen. It took a little while to set up, and we got all the signals right, and then you guys played it, and my hair was up on my arm, man. It was the energy. It was fire. It was fire.
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Diwas is incredible on guitar.
Yeah.
Michael Wu is very similar to you. He's an accomplished bass player, always learning. I think that's such a key. We need to carry that phrase throughout the show.
Always learning.
Always learning.
Yeah, it's
You know?
important. I would add to that like identify what you're good at.
Right.
That's also important. Like be learning stuff, but also know your strengths. And
Yep.
that's super important.
Play on your strengths. I didn't know Wu was into the grind, man. I've seen him play some super amazing articulate jazz.
Yeah.
And like I said, he's getting like lessons for that stuff. Had his instrument is like crafted for his hands, but man, when he whipped out that 5-string and went to town, it was intense. I was like, holy crap, this is great.
That was sick.
So yeah, we want to do this in every show. We want to highlight an artist
Right.
out of regional music, and this is going to be our first one. So we're going to do Who is Fish, and we're going to do Mantra.
That's awesome.
And so thanks for sharing that, and y'all listen and enjoy it, please, and also check out Who is Fish.
Thanks. Yeah, right on.
Dude, that was crazy. I'm telling you, man. It really translated through the video. I feel like the energy. So good job.
Thanks, man. That's
awesome.
Maybe we'll play it live someday for a bunch of people.
I hope so.
I mean, it's a good tune. It's a good tune.
People got something against instrumental music. They're screwed up in the head, man. They got to enjoy that too. And to be honest with you, like the motif usage in that song, it's catchy as a vocalist to me. Like it's definitely got some parts that it sticks with you. So
to me, it's like a chase scene or an action sequence in a movie. That would just be like the perfect music for it.
Yeah,
it'd be sick.
Cool.
Oh, I wanted to just talk about what's going to happen for the next show.
Yes.
So, and maybe we can decide right now, but who would you want to have from, eventually we'll have all the New Vine artists have their turn for a show.
Yeah.
Who would you want to have for the next episode? Who would you want to bring onto the show?
I got to be honest, like one of the most interesting people on the label is Emma from Spazar.
Spazar.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're really cool. I love all the artists, and like you said, we're gonna have them all in some outside, hopefully.
Yeah. I figured we'd start with
the
the label artists and then branch out from there.
Exactly. Emma is super interesting, and Spazar is a very unique group. Probably one of the loudest groups I've ever worked with or recorded. But yeah, it's Emma, John, and Jeff, and it's a trio. And they're just really unique. She's got this crazy bass tone. John North's guitar tone is the most luscious, beautiful guitar tone I've ever heard in my life. And Jeff's just a killer on his John Bonham style drums. And so, yeah, I think it'd be really cool to have those cats in.
It's bizarre. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, it's been decided.
We'll see.
So next week or whenever we get the next episode.
We're hoping to do weekly podcasts.
Weekly would be great.
Yeah.
And so, but the next episode we'll have Spazar.
Spazar.
I like it. Very good.
Well, guys, everybody, thank you for listening and watching. Check it out. Try to subscribe to us. We're going to be on Spotify and iTunes, and we're going to do the whole gamut of podcast release. So,
and maybe on the New Vine website too, have a podcast spot potentially.
Yeah, we'll put this on YouTube as well.
Yeah, great.
And hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching and listening.